And I have to say, and I've said it before, he is possibly the worst lawyer that Hunter Biden could have at this moment.
And what doesn't fit about Kevin's background is in every puff piece by the LA Times, they try to portray him as this rough and tumble, lower middle class, suburban Philly kid who cut his teeth. And none of his behavior backs that. He acts like a petulant child that's never been made fun of in his life. He has such thin skin at 60.
Hi, my name is Ann McElhenney.
And I'm Phelim McAleer.
And welcome to the Ann and Phelim Scoop.
Oh, yes.
Hello.
Back on dry land.
We are back on dry land, but we're still actually having slight experiences of kind of swaying from side to side, just a little bit.
We appear to sway side to side because we've been on a very large boat for the last
week.
Yes. It was brilliant. It was exhausting. We're pleased to report that Mark Steyn is in fine form and fighting on, and we'll come to more of that later. Huge week in politics. Supreme Court rules 9-0 that states, shockingly, that some weirdo official in Colorado can't decide who the rest of the nation gets to vote for. Shocking judicial decision, not.
California. And California's bread and circuses. I love this story so very, very, very much. We hear about the very weird exemption to California's new minimum wage law. You really have to hear this for people outside of California who may not have heard this extraordinary story.
And speaking of California, we bring you the very not so strange case of a, quote, disgruntled, unquote, dental patient in San Diego.
I can't wait to hear that because I actually don't know what that story is about. And we hear how Hunter Biden is using one of our episodes of the Ann and Phelim Scoop, by the way,
yes,
as evidence in one of his increasingly desperate lawsuits.
Yes.
But we'd start by just looking back on, so we were on this cruise for the last week with the Mark Steyn cruise.
Yes.
Touring around the islands of the Caribbean, and what a wonderful time we had,
yes,
with and amazing people. I have to say the highlight of the whole thing was the people that we met and
yes,
the people we hung out with.
I mean, Mark's fans are who were on the cruise. They're a very, very eclectic bunch. They're very, very educated bunch,
and they're from everywhere.
There was
a guy who came in. Now he was American, but he came from Japan.
Yes, there were plenty of people. There was
Australia,
New Zealand, England, Ireland,
Canada.
There was people from all over, and they're very eclectic, very accomplished,
very
group.
Interesting.
And then the speakers. We met Conrad Black. That's Lord Black of Cross Harbour to you, Lord Black, who was, as Mark has said, one of the greatest media moguls of the last 50 years, in the sense the organisations that he ran, and that was everything from the Daily Telegraph in London to the Chicago Sun-Times. Everyone who worked for him said he was a great media mogul. What I really like about him was when something would appear in one of his newspapers. Normally what would happen, if something appears in a media mogul's newspapers that he doesn't like, he phones up the editor and
barks down the phone,
and the editor gets the message and doesn't allow that kind of nonsense in the paper again. And then I suppose if the editor keeps doing it, the editor gets fired. That's how most media moguls work. If something appeared in Conrad Black's newspapers or outlets that he didn't like, he would write a letter to the editor and it would be published.
Oh yeah, I totally disagree with the columnist you had on
yes,
Tuesday.
Yes.
Whatever. Oh yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, let's have my opinions out there in the public and my objections, but not nothing against the editor for
yes,
allowing it into the newspaper.
He's just written a book, The History of the World, Volume 1.
Wow.
So
which is pretty big, by the way.
It's a big book.
It's a big book. He's really what a lovely man, by the way. Very, very charming and interesting. And I spent a very nice evening having drinks with him. But we should say
that he became famous for being prosecuted by an activist DA in Chicago. Was convicted of fraud, which was, it was a stitch up right from the start. Convicted of the fraud, convicted also of tampering with evidence for taking his personal belongings out of the office and his personal computer. He maintained his innocence all along and brought it to the Supreme Court. And won in the Supreme Court and was exonerated in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, now, he wasn't pardoned. He was exonerated.
No, he was exonerated in the Supreme Court, but he was then, yes, you're correct. Then there was 2 outstanding charges of the tampering with evidence. So Trump exonerated him, expunged him from those charges. So he is, in effect, an innocent man.
I think it's just want to say one thing that I thought was really interesting as well about Conrad Black. So he went to prison. He actually genuinely went to prison. He went to a prison in Florida, a medium security prison, right, Phelim? Because he was a foreigner, they didn't put him in one of those
normally
club fed.
Normally an executive like Elizabeth Holmes, who's not a violent offender, gets a club fed, but because he was a foreigner, there's such a joke. That you can walk over the border and walk on in and get released immediately as a foreigner. But if you're a foreigner and you're convicted of defrauding investors, which was wrong. Just a little side note, you may have noticed lots of cases where people have been now cleared. Like, for example, the Bridgegate people in New Jersey, Chris Christie's mob gang, really. I mean, the idea that Chris Christie should be taken seriously for anything is such a joke. The guys, so some mayor of some no-name town in New Jersey didn't support Chris Christie in the election, and Christie's people punished him by closing the exit ramps and causing massive tailbacks for people leaving people to school and going to work. They were hours late, but it held up ambulances, etc.
Oh no, very serious.
So they were convicted of fraud and malfeasance, and again using the Conrad Black court precedent, they were then cleared on appeal, because in order to have committed fraud, the judges of the Supreme Court said someone actually has to. You actually have to gain a financial benefit.
Oh, you have to gain it.
And someone has to lose money. And, they said stop confusing political nastiness with fraud.
Yeah, I think the Bridgegate people, I don't like that story at all. I think there's something. I mean, I wouldn't like to be comparing Lord Black actually to those Bridgegate people, because I think they did really hurt people.
Yeah, but they weren't charged with hurting people.
Right, okay. So they should have been charged with that.
Yes.
But Lord Black, anyway, he went... I thought this was fascinating, and we heard this from Mark Steyn. I was chatting to him about Lord Black. And Lord Black went to a prison.
Yeah.
And this
Orange
is a man
jumpsuit.
who would have lived, a very elegant life. He's a very, he's a gentleman. And he, anyway, ended up in this jumpsuit. But interestingly enough, just to show the kind of person he is, he got on really well with the other prisoners, who apparently called him Lordy, and he taught school there, taught prisoners. And interestingly enough, just a detail that I thought was fabulous, that when we came back off the cruise, we arrived back into Florida, that he met up with some of his former inmates, who has remained friends with and corresponds with. And I should also mention, one of the highlights of the cruise for me was meeting his wife, Barbara Emile, who is the author of Friends and Enemies, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But she's a writer, she's a journalist. Really, really fascinating. 83 years old, very nice looking woman, I have to say. Very, very good looking woman, beautifully dressed. But what a charming woman. And I spent a very, very entertaining evening with her. I highly recommend the book. I will say, so the book is called Friends and Enemies, and it really tells her story of her life, but up to and including all this awful stuff that happened with her husband, Lord Black. And one thing that she does, now I haven't got to the end of the book because I was having difficulties buying it online, by the way, but I would ask you, go out there and try and get it whichever way you can. At the end of the book, apparently, she lists the people who turned their backs on her and her husband. These are people that I always think it strikes me with, we did the case about Kevin Spacey, and it strikes me, people like him, people like them, who would have had unbelievable celebrity friends, but who they thought were their friends. Like, doesn't matter that you're a celebrity, that you've been coming to my house and going to my children's weddings or going to bar mitzvah or whatever it is that you're going to, and that suddenly something happens and they disown you, completely disown you, which is what obviously happened to Kevin Spacey. And I'd love to ask him that question one day about how he's processed that. Well, I'll tell you how Barbara Emile has processed it. She published the names of the people who did that at the end of her book, and I just think, good for you, Barbara. I love it.
My favourite anecdote from the book, now I don't know if you've got to it yet, but she walked into a room and Ghislaine Maxwell turned her back on her.
Oh, I haven't got to that one. That's fantastic. Oh, even Ghislaine Maxwell wasn't going to have anything to do with her. I would say about the book, pretty mature content now, and it's She's scrupulously honest to a point where it's kind of breathtaking at times. But I certainly am enjoying it. She's a beautiful writer, really, really superb writer. I'd recommend it. It's called Friends and Enemies by Barbara Emile, and I'll put the link in the show notes.
But it is mature content.
Yes, we're going to mention that one more time. It is very mature content. We also had the very wonderful Michelle Bachmann, congresswoman from Minnesota,
former congresswoman,
who had formerly, gone for president at one point in her career.
Can I just say, we were on a cruise with Michelle Bachmann previously, and they did an excerpt of FBI Lovebirds Undercovers, our play about Strzok and Page. And to be honest, I remember Mark Steyn saying, "Look, we're going to do reenactments of your play at the end for the finale."
Yes.
And I was thinking, oh, that's a bit. And I says, well, who's going to? He says, well, I'm going to play Peter Strzok, and Michelle Bachmann's going to play Lisa Page. And I was kind of going, okay, well, it's your trip,
It's your boat.
Yeah. And I thought, well, Mark will be good because he's an old hand. He spent more time on Broadway than most of us have had hot dinners. He's written books about Broadway. He knows the trade. But then, but I think Michelle Bachmann, former Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann turned out to be, she killed it.
Star turn.
She was a brilliant Lisa Page. So she's a woman of many talents.
Just charming. But yeah, she had a little bit of a problem with her memory, Phelim. Was that right?
Yes. She said after repeatedly being told, by the way, and sharing photographs, etc., she said it'll be so nice for you to get back to Sneaky Cat.
Sneaky Cat. How dare her. Sneaky Cat, Mr. Scaredy Cat, is most offended, by the way, when we explain the whole situation to him. He doesn't like Michelle Bachmann at all now.
No, he wouldn't vote for her. He said, I would not vote for her.
I'd have nothing to do with her.
If she ran for citizenship for cats or whatever her ballot.
Anyway, we highly recommend the cruise. Mark Steyn, just a great turn, and I think important to say that he is fighting fit and fighting on.
Yes.
This is not over.
In fact, I would call him more fighting fit than we saw him in DC. I mean, well, look, we were all exhausted after DC. It was awful. I mean, it was tough. It was tough. And we found it really tough being in the case, and then that night trying to get the podcast together, Climate Change on Trial. If you haven't listened to it, you gotta listen to it. Go to anywhere where you get your podcast. But he was in a similar situation. He was going through the trial all day. I mean, you remember, he was writing motions to the judge.
Yeah.
He was writing, then he was writing his closing speech and his opening speech, all whilst trying to also work out his questions for the next day.
Dreadful.
So he, at the end of the trial, he actually looked tired.
Yeah, very tired.
And we were thinking, will he be fit for the cruise? I have to say, he was full of energy. Full of energy.
Very entertaining.
Very entertaining. So we were so happy to see that. And talking of politics, Anne.
Yes. Trump is back on the ballot. Yes. And
yes.
It should never have been off the ballot. This is very, very much third world behaviour, but that's actually really an insult to third world, right?
Yes.
So what the Supreme Court said was, we conclude that states may disqualify persons holding or attempting to hold state office, but states have no power under the Constitution to enforce Section 3, which prevents insurrectionists from holding office with respect to federal offices, especially the presidency.
It's irrelevant. I believe the Supreme Court thing is irrelevant. To praise the Supreme Court is not seeing the wood for the trees. Trump should never have been disqualified. It should have been laughed out of a junior court. People should feel embarrassed to even have suggested it. He should not be facing these dummy criminal charges, the one in New York at the end of the month, maybe where he's basically been charged for not having a happy marriage, basically. So. Look, don't normalize this. Don't accept this as normal behavior. Don't accept that it takes nine people to get out of bed on the right side of bed on a morning, so that we can vote for the person
that you want.
Yeah. That's a really sad indictment of America and American politics.
But we have a story from California that I think is absolutely fabulous, and this is just beautiful. I just love this story so much.
Yeah, so Gavin Newsom has signed a bill which now will bring the minimum wage in California to $20 an hour. Like, can you? I mean, by the way, this is why
fast food, right?
Fast food. This is why all middle class people are leaving LA. It's because no one can afford to do anything here. If fast food people are making $20 an hour, what's an assistant going to make?
Yeah.
What's a junior manager going to make?
This is huge money.
People cannot afford to run businesses here.
But what we love about this, so let's leave that aside,
Yes.
is that he made an exception. There's an exception within the fast food industry, and it's excluded businesses that operate. Are you ready for this now? You've got to listen very carefully because this is very difficult. Even to read this is hard. So the exception is for businesses that operate a bakery that produces for sale on the establishment's premises bread. Did you catch that?
So
a bakery that produces for sale on the establishment's premises bread. As fast food.
So if the bread is produced next door, it doesn't work. If the bread is produced in a central bread making place and sent to it doesn't work. And KTLA, I love this, KTLA, which is our local TV station. Why the line was drawn at bread remains unclear. Well, let me help you.
Yeah.
Asked about it, Gavin Newsom said that's part of the sausage making of the legislation.
Sausage making. And by the way, for the rest of you guys, too complicated for me to get into. It's just sausage making. Don't be worried about it though. It all makes sense.
Pretty little heads.
Your pretty little Californian heads. Don't be bothering at all about that.
But then KTLA reported that Newsom himself pushed for the exemption. People with the matter told Bloomberg News. One of the primary beneficiaries of the exemption is Greg Flynn, a billionaire and longtime Newsom donor.
Shut up.
Who has two dozen Panera Bread locations in California.
Phelim, are you going to ask me a question now? Are you going to ask me?
What do you think Panera Bread sells?
Phelim, can I just go right out on a limb here and say that I think that Panera Bread might sell bread, but I'm going to add to that though, because I think that they might make the bread on the premises, Phelim. You
are correct, Anne.
Do I win anything at all?
No.
So it's not like Subway then. No. So it's like just Panera Bread. And by the way, we just came across this story. We just got off the boat literally, and I'd love to look into it. But honestly, I would go way out on a limb and say that maybe Panera Bread is the only fast food outlet in California where the bread is made on the premises. But maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. So. There was all these things about. Well, they tried to say Panera Bread is not a fast food outlet, but there's all these fast casuals now, like Blaze Pizza and Chipotle, which are higher, but they weren't exempted. So fast casual, which is kind of a higher end fast food, they weren't exempted. The only place that was exempted was places that operate a bakery that produces for sale on the establishment premises, bread.
Oh my God!
That's fast food.
Very disappointing.
So Flynn has been involved in Newsom's campaign, donating $100,000 in 2021 to help him fight the recall, and $64,000 in 2022. And
by the way, and that I presume does not include super PACs, which I think don't have have different kind of rules in terms of reporting of their donations.
And people who spoke to Bloomberg under the condition of anonymity said he urged the governor's top aides to reconsider whether fast casual chains such as Panera should be classified as fast food. However, the fast casual exemption wasn't adopted, but the bread making exemption was.
This is that's how the cookie crumbles.
And talking of California, this is more about media malfeasance. So, and it's a very, very sad story actually.
Oh dear.
A dentist was shot in San Diego.
Oh my God.
By a disgruntled according to every media outlet. It was shot by a disgruntled ex-patient.
Oh dear.
And he was a 28-year-old Dr. Benjamin Ariel Haruni.
The 28-year-old was shot dead?
Shot dead, a dentist. He went into the dentist's office in San
God.
Diego, wounded a couple of the receptionists.
Go on.
And shot dead. He worked alongside his father Jack at the Smile Plus dental office, where he succumbed to multiple gunshot wounds on Thursday. Both father and son, and the son was shot by a disgruntled patient, mind you, Anne, were esteemed members of the Jewish Persian community.
Go on.
And so he was a Jewish dentist.
Oh God, no.
The alleged disgruntled patient, the disgruntled patient's name was
Muhammad.
How did you know that? Sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
I actually didn't know the answer to that because that was meant to be a surprise. Am I right?
Yes, Muhammad Abdul Karim. It's like a joke. Muslim name, isn't it? Was dressed in all black.
Oh my God, he killed a 28-year-old
dentist.
So it's not a disgruntled dentist. It's not a disgruntled.
It's an
anti-Semitic thing.
Of course, it's an anti-Semitic thing.
And no one's reporting.
No one's reporting on it.
What are they saying? He got his fillings badly done or something?
They call him I mean, maybe he was a patient once, but he probably was a patient to suss out the office. Or maybe it was the only Jewish people he knew that I remember those people. I want to kill some Jews. I remember my dentist was Jewish.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean
that's shocking.
That is shocking, but again, it's a media malfeasance thing. I mean, this is.
Oh, that's media exactly. They're not even exploring any other possibility other than the fact that he was unhappy with his crowns.
Yes.
Okay, we're moving on to it. Where you have an interview, Phil?
Yes, I do. Yes. So Garrett. Let's go over to that interview now. It's with Garrett Ziegler, actually, the founder of Marco Polo, which is a not-for-profit investigative organization. He's a former Trump White House staffer, and we're going to go to the interview. We'll let him describe what he's been up to since the White House. And let's go over to that interview that I did earlier. So, as I said, I'm joined now by Garrett Ziegler, who's the founder of Marco Polo, an investigative not-for-profit. He founded Marco Polo after leaving the Trump White House. But I want Garrett, welcome to the show, Garrett. I want you to explain what you've been up to and what Marco Polo is.
Yeah, so again, thanks for having me on. We are a private investigative firm that is a nonprofit. It's a 501c3. And our first big project was going through every file on the Biden laptop in a systematic way. And that took us nearly 2 years. And the result of that effort was this report on the Biden laptop, which is free to read online at bidenreport.com. And that report has caused Hunter and his sugar brother, the guy funding all of this, to file 2 lawsuits against us. Kevin Morris filed a lawsuit in April of 2023, so it's going on a year now, in the LA County Court.
To be fair, you didn't just investigate the laptop, but you did investigate, but you didn't just do that. You also reached out to Kevin Morris, and we should explain to people who don't know who Kevin Morris is. Kevin Morris is this weird, perhaps weirdo lawyer, Hollywood lawyer. He was a lawyer to the stars, agent to the stars, manager to the stars here in Hollywood. Managed the guys from South Park. Made a lot of money, but he also became Hunter Biden's best friend forever. And he then decided he was going to get Hunter Biden cleared. He's lent them maybe millions of dollars to clear his tax debts, which Hunter then didn't use to clear his tax debts. But how I come to know him was he came to our set of the My Son Hunter movie in Serbia, posing as a documentarian, that he's making a documentary about Hunter Biden, and got access to our set, got access to the stars, got access to me, sat me down for maybe 6 hours of interviews, asking me all sorts of questions about the laptop, etc., under the guise of being a neutral documentarian working with South Park. It turns out, it later emerged that he is Hunter Biden's lawyer, that he was there gathering evidence for Hunter Biden and for his case. I've lodged an ethics complaint with the California Bar Association, which you can imagine is taking its time to consider that, and really they're slow walking it, and it's a joke. These are the same people who let Tom Girardi steal hundreds of millions of dollars from widows and orphans. So fast forward to that, then I get to meet this guy called Garrett Ziegler, who's been Kevin Morrising Kevin Morris. Explain what you did to poor unfortunate Kevin Morris, Garrett.
Yeah, so at this time, to bring the audience back to the setting and the time frame, I don't know you from Adam. I am simply reading these New York Post articles. He broke California bar rules, multiple ones. And in fact, that complaint you alluded to is in our report. We put screenshots of that in our report so that even if they don't police their own and he gets off scot-free, that we have that for posterity, that this guy, he lied to your face multiple times. And so what happened as a result of that, we had righteous indignation, and a friend of mine gave him a piece of his own medicine, or a taste of his own medicine, which according to Kevin is quite bitter, especially when delivered suppository style. And Kevin lost his mind. So what my friend did is he posed as an ally to the Bidens. he did the same thing that Kevin Morris did, in the sense that he ingratiated himself. He texted Morris over a course of days and said, hey, we have this forensic proof that the laptop was forged with, that it was really left at Keith Ablow's house, and that Keith Ablow made clones. All of this ridiculous information that there is not one piece of evidence for. And Kevin bought it hook, line, and sinker, and then proceeded to send my friend a schematic that looked like it was prepared by the protagonist of A Beautiful Mind, George Nash. It's schizophrenic nut job.
Let's put that up there actually on the screen so people. This is prepared by Kevin Morris, Hunter Biden's lawyer. This is the document he hopes is going to clear Hunter Biden of.
And you described him earlier. He finally fessed up to the LA Times. We've tracked this guy's movements now for about 20 months, meaning we have a list of all his LLCs. He sued us in part because we tracked his plane, like anybody with an internet connection can do. Mm-hmm. He sued us for looking up a public database with his plane's tail number. So some people might recall that Taylor Swift recently sold her plane because she didn't want to be tracked. Kevin Morris is actually more of a sissy than Taylor Swift, because he didn't just sell the plane. He had to try to sue us, and we won a portion of that lawsuit. The portion that is allowed to proceed, we're appealing, and Kevin Morris is appealing the cause of action that was dismissed. So right now we're in the California appellate system, and look at the imbalance here. If the left is worried about David and Goliath stories, you got Kevin Morris, who swore under oath to the Congress that he has at least $100 million based upon the money he's lent Hunter and the percentage thereof that he said he's given to Hunter. On one side, so you got about $110 million on one side versus our $195,000 nonprofit, which we were forced to spend over $200,000 in 2023 alone. And again, my friend did not engage in any illegal conduct whatsoever. All we did was pass it to the New York Post, who then posted the schematic. And Kevin Morris's own schematic, Phelim, was what embarrassed him.
Yes.
He's suffering emotional distress due to his own paranoia and bong smoking, essentially.
Well, I mean, interesting. I just want to talk about the bong smoking. So Hunter Biden is an addict. He's written a book about being an addict. Kevin Morris told me this, and it's probably on tape, but he's never going to use the tape, so he probably thought it would never come out. Kevin Morris told me he's a former addict, right? And we had this big conversation about addiction. And I said, you should make a documentary. You should make the Hunter Biden documentary actually about addiction and what is addiction, because it's one of those things that affects so many people. But I don't think the medical community really understands what addiction is. I'm not saying I understand what it is, but it's a very, very complex thing. It's always fascinated me that people will kill themselves with their addictions. I mean, it's an amazing thing that they will not stop. That their addiction is so strong. I mean, I just think it's an interesting point in a that I would watch a documentary on. And he was very open. He was addicted, an addict, and not only that, he was an addict for everything, all the good, not just alcohol, and he was quite open about that. And then you fast forward to the New York Post, and Hunter Biden arrives at. I always felt also that Hunter's having Kevin Morris as a best friend is not good for him, because Morris is basically trying to bail him out and trying to help him rather than face the consequences of his action. He's enabling him to avoid the consequences of his actions. But Hunter Biden arrives at his house in Malibu, and literally 10 minutes later, Kevin Morris is out on the balcony smoking a massive bong, right? And I'm going, that is not the behavior of someone who has kicked his addictions and cured his demons. Now, apparently there's a thing called California Sober, where you're allowed to smoke marijuana and maybe drink a small amount of alcohol. I call that a drunk, right? Or a druggie, right? That's just nonsense. But anyway, sorry, I digress a little bit.
Well, no, I'm going to digress real quick, because he finally admitted to the LA Times that his wife left him years ago. This guy is lonely. And again, his only really mission right now, beyond just sitting on the pile of cash he's accumulated from Comedy Central in large part, his whole project is Hunter. So their war room is his dining room table in his home in the Pacific Palisades. Funny thing is that Gabby basically claimed the estate on Retreat Court in Malibu, and Kevin is relegated to a suburban home in the Pacific Palisades. Still nice, of course.
So Gabby is his wife, his ex-wife?
Gabby is his wife on paper. They're estranged, but I think that the financial benefits of them staying married outweigh any emotional harm. Meaning they're probably screwing other people. Kevin sued us for posting a county property record. So we found a government record and we posted it on our Telegram page. And he thinks that in the United States of America, posting a public record is illegal.
Of course he does.
How deranged this guy is.
No, he's not deranged. Look, we're living in Biden's America now, where the president can be knocked off the ballot in 3 states. And people think that's okay, right? Look, it's not madness to go before a California judge and say what is perfectly legal is now not legal because we say it is not legal. So that don't.
Yeah, in their context, I agree with you.
Yeah,
but in the United States that I live in, small town Illinois, this is laughable.
Yeah, well,
but
you laugh.
We had to spend $175,000 to defend ourselves in a Santa Monica court.
That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to bankrupt you with lawfare. So fast forward then to the latest salvo in the lawsuit. I believe I have the Ann and Phelim Scoop has a passing role in this.
More than a passing role. I found this out. He filed this at about 11 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday night because his deadline was midnight, and entered as an exhibit to his response to our motion to dismiss is an entire transcript of my last appearance on this show. And one of the motives for including that transcript. So if we have to find a silver lining in this, just know that an associate at Winston and Strawn is listening and will listen to this and have to dictate every single syllable that we utter today, which is hilarious. But their reasons.
We should say some words that are really difficult to spell. Like super.
Well, one of their reasons for including this is trying to establish jurisdiction over me. The funny thing is that I recall when we last did that, this is the third time I've been on this program. The second time you were in Europe. And so they're trying to establish that I'm subject to the Central District of California's jurisdiction because you apparently reside in the Central District. It's not even like 2 hops of logic.
Yes.
This is logic that is like in a dream. It's like describing the plot of a dream. Phelim's in California, and Garrett did an interview with him and talked about our client's sugar brother. Ergo, Garrett is subject to the Central District jurisdiction. It's like a legal filing that I would have prepared in 2nd grade. And somebody in Winston and Strawn signed off on this thing.
Well, I want to say hello to the associate at Winston and Strawn, is it? Who will be transcribing
Winston
this.
and Strawn, yes.
Yeah, Winston and Distraught, who will be transcribing this. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious is one thing. Mississippi is another word. Any other words? Will, any other words do I could? Anti-disestablishment.
Yeah, no, these are legitimate laughs on my part. I mean, this guy is. I looked at his profile. His name's Green, something A Green, and he holds himself out as a lawyer to the stars. And I can imagine his thoughts of transcribing our interview and say, "Wow, I have really." This is what I've been relegated to.
This is what I've
And
been
that's
relegated
what
to.
everybody who deals with the Bidens finds out. One of the things that my friend told Kevin Morris is, you're never going to get this money back, man. There's a whole Indian tribe in front of you, namely the Oglala Sioux that Hunter Biden and Devin Archer screwed in the SDNY over bond fraud, meaning the Oglala Sioux got stiffed. Kevin Morris is going to get stiffed. The only thing in Kevin Morris's favor is that he took over the 10% share of the Chi-Com private equity group. And because our group, which is only 6 guys, has focused on that more than anything, that BHR 10% share, which according to a U Chicago professor is worth anywhere from 10 to 15 million, because we have focused on that, that is why Kevin hates us. That is Kevin.
No, so Kevin Morris has taken over some of Hunter's dodgy business dealings. Then his dodgy.
Yes,
business.
that is based on all available evidence. That is Kevin Morris's collateral. So he gives Hunter the liquid cash now to pay the mother in Arkansas, and I was involved in that case, by the way. I was the witness for the mother of his child. He pays the woman in Arkansas with the liquid cash from Morris. He pays his legal bills, but in exchange, Kevin gets that 10% share of the Chi-Com investment fund.
So you think he's got at least 10 or 15 million? I just want to say, I want to send a message to Mr. Morris. Look, let's let bygones be bygones. And 10. I don't want the full 10 or 15 million. I never liked that guy Garrett anyway, and I could be bought. Some guy is transcribing this now, and I'm bringing it excitingly to his boss before he realizes I'm joking. That is sarcasm. Anyway, go ahead, Garrett.
Hey, so in the time since we last spoke on this program, Kevin had an interview with the Congress,
That's
and in
right.
that interview, he called me a creep and you disgruntled. So we're living rent free in this guy's head.
Disgruntled. I can't speak for you being a creep, right?
Let's put it this way: if somebody who navigates county deed records is a creep,
yes,
then I'm a creep. If somebody who looks up county land records is not a creep, then I'm not a creep.
And also it's like, okay, let's focus about me because I'm much more important here. Obviously, disgruntled. Should I take that as I'm asking the producer here. Will, should I take that as a compliment? I mean, all great journalists are disgruntled. I think actually. I mean, funny he takes that he means that as an insult. I mean, look, if you're a journalist and you're not disgruntled, then you're not a journalist. I mean, I think he's so used to dealing with these snow job journalists who ask Hunter softball questions while talking about addiction, etc., that to actually ask difficult questions, to actually go into dusty records in the county office of Los Angeles and find a document. This is what we do, right? I mean, people think it's so glamorous, but I've just done a big project which involved me going through 20,000 pages to try and find a story in it. We did the Kevin Spacey trial. It involved interviewing lawyers in 2 or 3 jurisdictions. It involved going through transcripts of trials. It involved going through 2 transcripts of 2 trials and sitting in a cancer-creating courthouse in London where there's no windows, no air conditioning, nothing for 3 weeks. So of course I'm disgruntled. But that is the permanent state of all good journalists.
I'm a curmudgeon, basically. And what doesn't fit about Kevin's background is in every puff piece by the LA Times, they try to portray him as this rough and tumble, lower middle class, suburban Philly kid who cut his teeth. And none of his behavior backs that. He acts like a petulant child that's never been made fun of in his life.
Yeah. I have to say...
He has such thin skin at 60.
Really thin skin. And I have to say, and I've said it before, he is possibly the worst lawyer that Hunter Biden could have at this moment. Hunter Biden does not need an aggressive lawyer. Hunter Biden does not need a thin-skinned lawyer. Hunter Biden needs an old guy in a suit who can go into the U.S. attorneys and the DOJ and say, look, Hunter messed up. He wants to be contrite. He didn't get his taxes together. What can we do? As opposed to going in full bore shotgun, trying to blast. They will not. I mean, the idea that he would go undercover to our movie set with deception, and not think that I wouldn't make a complaint to the Bar Commission, not think that I wouldn't expose it, not think that this is something that the world needs to know about. The sense of entitlement is enormous.
It's egregious. And Jason Cohn and Rob Bindler, equally implicated. They were following Hunter at his contempt hearing fiasco, where he left because he has such thin skin, like his lawyer, when Marjorie Taylor Greene started talking. Mm-hmm. And we are committed to never, as in 15 years from now, unless Jason Cohn and Rob Bindler come forward, we are never going to let this down. Mm-hmm. I don't care what any court says.
Oh, no.
So Rob Bindler, he's going to have to answer for this in the public square until the day I die.
Yeah, well,
it's so disgusting to me.
I think I might be able to help you with that. No, look, we cannot let this rest, and we cannot allow them to try and cover up Hunter Biden's misdeeds and Joe Biden's misdeeds by lawfare. We need to keep fighting. So tell us, there was an excerpts from the interview we did previously. What are the excerpts that they're using in the latest lawsuit against you? What were the words?
The excerpts that they highlighted were allusions to California. The exhibit was used to try to establish the Central District's jurisdiction to me. So I mentioned crimes that took place in California, the fact, and I didn't even mention this, but they inferred the fact that you are domiciled in the Central District, that therefore I'm availing myself of their jurisdiction, that I'm directing activities. So in their warped view, me talking about felonious conduct by their client is availing myself to that jurisdiction. It's bonkers.
It's bonkers.
It's things that lawyers should be embarrassed to put on filings.
Well, you see, after spending a month in the Mark Steyn trial, there is no embarrassment with lawyers anymore. And if you get the right jury in the right coastal city of America or the right judge, then you're right not to be embarrassed, because there is no justice for conservatives now in most major American cities, unfortunately.
The issue is so important that we can't let up, though. I think that Joe was just at Camp David this weekend. In fact, he still is. He flies out tomorrow. He's still there. And you can be sure they're talking litigation strategy. The Axios in January of 2023 even went on record to say that the discussions between Abby Lowell, Kevin, and Hunter, they had a meeting in the Roosevelt Room about these lawsuits against not just me, Rudy Giuliani, the IRS. They're suing all of us. Patrick Burns getting sued. So, meaning Joey's been consulted. Obviously, Joey's name is not on the lawsuit, but Joey's well aware of all of this stuff.
Totally. It's part of his re-election strategy. Although you're talking to someone here who believes that Joe will not be on the ballot.
I'm interested to see what they do at the convention.
Yeah, I think that's the key. That's what is going to happen. Michelle Obama will be his great friend. Michelle Obama will be wheeled out.
One more thing I have to add is we're going to be filing a motion for recusal for the judge in our federal case. We already got the state court judge recused once. We got a different judge in the state court judge. Epstein's our second judge in that matter. Yeah. But the judge in our case with Hunter was appointed by Joey 3 months before he was assigned to our case. Joey appointed him 3 times.
Wow.
The first 2 times, the Senate Judiciary Committee rejected his nomination, and Joey kept sending him back to the Senate. And when he was released from the Senate Judiciary Committee for the full Senate vote, the vote was 11-10, strict party lines. And then on the full Senate vote, it was 51-48. His name is Hernan Vera, and his former spouse is Joey's acting Secretary of Labor.
Wow.
And he gave $2,500 to Joey in 2020. So that's our judge. This is what we're dealing with.
That's who you're dealing with. Look, we can have you on every week, and maybe we will. We should get together and plan things as well. Let's talk offline about that. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Garrett.
Thank you for this opportunity. I always enjoy it.
Yes, it's been a lot of fun. That's the end of the Ann and Phelim Scoop for this week. We will see you next week. Don't forget to go to the unreportedstorysociety.com if you want to help support this show. Leave a comment in the YouTube section. Leave a comment in the Apple Podcast section. We always want to hear what you think. Are we talking too much, too little? And let us know what you think. Thank you. Bye.